Well, good afternoon, sports fans. This is the first video I've put up for a while. The weather here in Canberra's been very ordinary, and there hasn't been much camera work going on. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of wind. I've been flying mainly line of sight, but one of my dozens of fans has queried where my videos are, so I thought I'd cobble together one from the bits and pieces I've been doing in September. I haven't been too adventurous, just a couple of trips up to Mount Tennant and some low level stuff around the field. So this is a trip I made a couple of weeks ago in the Tek-Sumo. It's to Mount Tennant, which you can see in the background, and if you've been watching the videos you'll know that it's 3.5 kilometres away and 800 metres to the top, where there are a couple of towers that I like to fly around. So the takeoff went fairly standard, and I did the usual autopilot checks before just heading straight out there. It's a pretty windy day, so the wind's coming from the west, which is to the right of my line of flight. And the Tek-Sumo gets a bit knocked off course a couple of times just as the wind. It's pretty gusty, but it's not too hard to keep it on track. As usual, I'm trying to conserve my battery as much as possible, so it's not a mad race out there. I try and keep the amp draw down to under 10 amps. It's a lovely clear day, as you can see, hardly a cloud in the sky, though there seems to be plenty on the horizon just down behind the mountains. So it looks like we're about 2/3 of the way there at the moment. So the current draw is looking good, battery voltage is looking good, so I'm just starting to come up on the top now. I can start to see the towers, and the on-screen display is telling me that I'm coming up on 3.5 kilometres, so the mountain hasn't moved since the last time I was up here. And I'm up at about 850 metres on the OSD, which is a bit out. I don't know whether you noticed at the beginning, but I hadn't reset the on-screen display, so the altitude was about 20 metres more than it actually is. There's the communications tower and the fire tower that I'm flying over at the moment. So I'm just turning around and going back for another look. It's surprisingly difficult, this, I find, on the screen. It's quite easy to lose your position, so it's always a relief when what you're trying to target comes back into view. And I think here it comes now. So I've managed to find the towers again, which is good. Doesn't look like there's any cars parked up there, and I can't see anybody waving, so there's nobody up on the mountain, which isn't surprising given the weather we've been having. It's just been, must be very muddy and wet up there, I would think. So coming around for our third pass. Battery voltage is still looking alright. So there we are, I just managed to catch it. And I decide, given the wind, I'll leave plenty of gas in the tank and head straight back. So that's where I've come from, that little corner over there, which is 3.5 kilometres away. So hopefully that's where I'll be going back to. So here we are. There's the dam, which is at the end of our strip, and you can see that dark area around the strip is where we've been burning off our African lovegrass, which has become quite a problem in the area. So bring it in for a landing, and yeah, everything goes quite smoothly, so very happy. But no accidents, so that's why I didn't put it up.
Yeah, well, it's proportional to how far away.
So this was another flight I had just a few days ago. Again, it was really windy, and it was even too windy to go out to Mount Tennant, so I thought I'd just have a bit of a low-level flight around the field and see if I could scare some sheep. So once again, the takeoff goes pretty well. Again, autopilot checks and the return to home checks, and then just got down amongst it. The sun was nice and bright, which makes the low level stuff possible. It's just too dark when there's a cloud overhead to get down low. So I'm basically doing a circuit inside the road that you can see on the right, and our strip, which I'm flying down towards now. You can see it passing down, and this paddock has a ridge running across the middle of it, so this back end of the strip of the ridge you can't actually see from our field, so I'm actually giving the boys back in the pits a bit of a thrill, because they think the plane has crashed because they can't see it behind the ridge, but the video seems to manage it. So this is low pass coming down down the strip. Again, it's not too bad. The wind's coming just a little bit from the left, but mainly straight on, so it's pretty easy to fly this height. So here's our nice clean sheep. They've just been shorn in the last couple of weeks, which is why they're looking so clean and bright. But, they seem to be a little bit twitchy. They're running from the plane, and normally they're pretty used to them. So coming down again for another low pass. I think this is the one where this tree on the right jumps out in front of me and tries to grab me, I think, as I recall. Yes, there it goes. So I was pretty lucky to survive that gust of wind there. But yes, all's well that ends well. So again, another run down the creek to the north of the strip. Sweep down over the sheeps. And avoid the electric wires going across the road. So I think I'm setting up for a landing in this one. We will see in a moment. Maybe not. It's a bit quick for a landing. And indeed it is. So I must be going around again. So this is the one where I've decided to land. That's right, I recall now. I actually was a lot higher than I wanted to be, but for some reason I decided to land, so I'm coming down a little bit steeply here, and as a consequence I think the nose digs in a little when I hit the deck, but there's no harm done. I think I just skip up a bit of sheep poop. So this is a bit of an experiment with my cartoon class Sopwith pup. I've decided to put a little 200 milliwatt transmitter and camera on it and see if I can fly it FPV. There's no OSD, so I'm just flying off the camera. You can see in the front of this a couple of big lead weights that I've had to put in the front of that to get the centre of gravity right. But with the camera I've been able to take a couple of those weights out, so that we're even more there. So for some reason the DVR didn't capture the takeoff, but it went fairly well. So this is the footage from the digital video recorder. The plane's too small to really put the Mobius on as well, but maybe something I'll do in the future. So this was just a fly around. As I said, I haven't got an on-screen display, so I don't really know how high I am or how fast I'm going or how much battery I'm using, so I'm not game to fly too far away. It helps if I stay within range to hear the motor revving. The plane itself is intended for a streamer combat competition we've got coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's not really what you'd call a precision flying machine. It floats around fairly slowly, but it's reasonably stable. It's got a lot of dihedral in the wing, so it seems to just hang under them quite well. But the video from the little transmitter seems to be pretty good. The antenna array that I use for my long range stuff is working fine. The camera isn't very good at handling the light. As you can see, heading into the sun, everything goes quite dark. Get a good view of the burnt patch where we've set fire to our African lovegrass. At this point the battery starts to run down. I'm a little bit concerned about ending up in the dam there, so I decided to bring her in for a landing, and I sort of do it half on the screen and half from the pits, and it works out surprisingly well, even though it's closer to the grass than I hoped. But yeah, all in all, it wasn't too bad. I'll have to give it another go in the future. After our competition, I'll do a little bit more experimentation. But yes, so that's what I've been doing for the last month or 6 weeks. Just little bits and pieces in between the crappy weather events. So hopefully now that spring's here, things will start to settle down and I can get back to doing the more interesting long range stuff.